In this video, we're going to break down shooting in 3 segments. We're going to start with an outside or a time and room shot. Most of the time, a time and room shot is anywhere where you're about 10 yards away from the goal. The reason we call it a time and room shot is after we receive a pass from a teammate, we have some time and room before a defender picks us up to release the shot. The next shot we're going to talk about is an inside or crease shot where you're around the goal. These shots are going to be anywhere from 1 to 4 or 5 yards away from the goal. And the final shot we'll talk about is a shot on the run. Shooting on the run is probably one of the most difficult skills to learn in lacrosse, and it's probably the skill you want to practice the most. It's a pretty obvious statement, but if you can't shoot, you can't score. I've played with a lot of really good players over the years, as I'm sure you have, that are great dodgers. They get themselves in position to score, but they're not good finishers. Those type of guys have a real hard time getting their game to the next level. Shooting is going to start more than anything with fundamentals and technique, and we're going to cover all those in a few minutes. The next thing we have to know with shooting is that all those fundamentals and techniques need to be repeated with your offhand. So you don't only want to be a great shooter with your strong hand, but you want to be able to do all the same techniques with your weak hand. If you can do that, you're going to be surprised how many more scoring opportunities you're going to have. The first part of shooting we're going to cover is an outside or a time and room shot. Outside and time and room shots are any shots about 10 to 12 yards outside of the goal. The most important part of this shot is that we're going to need power and accuracy and speed from out here.
Dillon up top, he rockets the left hand.
The most important thing we're going to need to get speed and power on our shot from outside is good mechanics, good fundamentals, good technique. Having good fundamentals and good technique will allow a guy who's maybe 5'8", 160 pounds to shoot as hard and as fast as a guy who's 6'2", 210 pounds. The first thing we need to do to get power and speed from outside is get a good base. By getting a good base, I mean we need to get in an athletic position, having good bouncy legs. We want to have our feet a little more than shoulder width apart, okay? And again, we want to have good bouncy legs. We're going to need this to get power from our shot, and we need to really be able to step into our shot. To use another sport, if you take a look at a baseball pitcher, when they throw the ball, they don't just stand there and throw it. They get a ton of power from their legs, and they get a big drive, and that's where a lot of their speed's going to come from. Same thing in lacrosse. If I'm out here 10 to 12 yards out, I'm not going to just stand there and throw it. I need to get low, I need to get a good base, and step into my shot. Again, get a good base, and step into my shot. After we set that good base, we got good athletic position, we want to make sure our legs are perpendicular to the goal. You can see my back is not to the goal, parallel to it, and I'm not wide open to it. I'm directly perpendicular to the goal. The next thing we need to do on an outside shot is set our hands in the correct position on the stick. The correct position for our hands is about 12 or 13 inches apart. I like to have my bottom hand all the way down to the butt end, and again, my top hand is about 12 or 13 inches apart. If my hands are too far apart, I'm not going to get any power on the shot. If my hands are too close together, I'm not going to get any accuracy on the shot. So for an outside shot, I like to have my hands about 12 or 13 inches apart, and that gives me the optimal distance to get power. To make sure my hands are in the proper position, I like to put some tape down at the end of my stick. This way, when I catch a pass, my hand goes right to that spot. I know exactly where it is. You can also see I have some tape about 12 or 13 inches up. Catch the pass, my bottom hand goes to the bottom, and my top hand goes to that spot 12 or 13 inches up. As soon as I catch that pass, I'm ready to go. Once I get in a good athletic position with my legs nice and bouncy, perpendicular to the goal, I got my hands 12 or 13 inches apart, whatever you're comfortable with. I need to get some extension. I need to have my hands and elbows high and away from my body. This is going to give me a lot of extra power on the shot. You can see if I have my hands in real close on an outside shot, I'm not going to get any power. But if I can extend my hand, I'm going to get a lot of extra power on my shot. After you feel comfortable with the base you set and you're in a good athletic position and you're perpendicular to the goal, you need to take a little skip step towards the goal. This is going to give you the drive you need. Like we talked about before from the pitcher, pitcher gets that extra push. We got to make sure here we don't cross our feet over. We just want to skip, bring our feet together, and that'll give us some extra momentum for the shot. The next and perhaps the most difficult skill to learn in an outside shot, and the area you're probably going to get the most speed and power from, is from a big hip and shoulder turn. If you can do that right, you're going to get a lot of speed for the shot. If you look at another sport and you look at the way a golfer swings, the reason why they can hit the ball so far is because they turn, the pro golfer turns his hips and shoulders and uncorks it through. If they didn't turn their hips and shoulders so much, they wouldn't hit it so far. Same thing in lacrosse. For us to be able to shoot hard, we need to really turn our hips and shoulders through the shot. The reason why this is difficult is because I'm going to need to be able to cradle the ball back, keep it in, and come through the shot. A drill I used to work on when I was younger is just keep the stick, keep the ball on the stick, turn and cradle without even shooting it. Just turn and cradle. Turn and cradle it through, and then I would go out on the goal and just work on turning my hips and shoulders through the shot. The final skill that make up the basic mechanics of the outside shot is a wrist snap about 3/4 of the way through the shot. So when you get ready to turn your hip and shoulders with that big cradle, you're coming through about 3/4 of the way through it. You want to just let go with your wrist, snap your wrists over. That's going to give you about 10 extra miles per hour on the shot. Let's review the basic mechanics of an outside shot. First thing we need to do is we're going to get power and speed from our legs, and we need to get in a good athletic position. Next thing we need to do is get our hands in the proper position on the stick. Again, I put the tape on my stick so I know my hands are going to go 13 inches apart. I'm going to have good hand position. I'll be ready to go. Next thing I need to do is get that extension. I'm going to do that by getting my hands and elbows high and away from my body. We then want to skip a little bit towards the goal to get some momentum. And remember, we don't want to cross our feet. We just want to skip towards the goal. Probably the most difficult skill is that big hip and shoulder turn, learning how to keep that cradle, keep the ball in there, and follow through. The final thing we need to do after about 3/4 of the way through the shot is just snap our wrists over, and hopefully we'll be able to get a pretty hard shot from outside. A common theme throughout this video is that there's not going to be any easy way to become a better lacrosse player. A good way to practice your time and room outside shot and to master the skills involved to have a good, hard time and room shot is just to get a bucket of balls, get out at a goal, and spend a ton of time working on your shot. The key thing you have to work on here is that you continuously work on the correct technique all the time, and that you don't go back to your old shooting habits just to put the ball in the net. Feel comfortable with missing the goal if you have to. As a matter of fact, if you miss the goal a bunch of times, you're probably working on the right technique. If every ball goes in right away, your technique is probably your old technique. So spend a lot of time working on your proper technique. If you miss the goal, it's okay. After a while, you get comfortable, you'll be putting them in the goal consistently. When we start to talk about placement for outside or time and room shots, there's a couple things we want to keep in mind. First thing we want to know is a little bit about our goalie, where his strengths and weaknesses are. If he's really good up high, I hardly want to shoot at all to his strength. If I know he's real weak on a certain bounce shot, I probably want to shoot a lot of those. As a general rule, we probably want to shoot as many bounce shots that try to skip up underneath the bar as we can. Those are the hardest saves for a goalie to make. So we want to shoot real nice high bounce shots. If they go over the goal, that's fine, we can live with that, we'll get the ball back. A key concept you have to understand with shooting high bounce shots is you have to get out and you got to know your field a little bit. A certain field you're playing on might be very hard. You got to bounce the ball a little closer to the goal. If the field is real soft like the one we're on today, you probably have to bounce the ball a little bit further away from the goal. Okay, so we talked about where the best place to shoot are the high bounce shots under the bar. An outside time and room shot, probably the worst place I can shoot is right at the goalie's feet. Not only on a fly at his feet, but when the ball bounces at his feet, those are really easy saves for him to make. Again, you can see how easy it is for the goalie to gobble those up, as opposed to when I shoot it overhand up into the bars. You can see he's really struggling with the ones that are bouncing high. Another thing we need to do to be an effective scorer from outside is have a quick release. While we call this a time and room shot, that doesn't mean you have all day to release it. So we need to learn to move to our teammate and pretty much be ready to shoot it as soon as you catch the ball. So if I move towards my teammate, I'm going to catch the ball and try to get as much power and velocity as I can and still get rid of the ball really quickly. I've played with a lot of players that have a really good shot. It takes them a long time to get the shot off. Make sure you learn, move towards the ball, catch it, get rid of it as quickly as you can, especially as you get up to higher levels. That time and room gap's going to fill up really quickly. In game situations, you're not going to often find yourself standing in a certain area wide open where you can catch the ball and just get a release. So what you need to work on is finding a passing lane and then shooting off the pass, making sure that you have, again, good technique, making sure that your base is set, you're taking a half skip to the goal, and then you're getting a good, hard, quick release. A drill I like to work on to practice this is I just set up 2 cones in different areas of the field. I'll start at 1 cone, cut hard, basically trying to find a passing lane, look for my teammate, set a good base, get a good, hard release. Developing deception on your outside shot is another key element to becoming a better scorer. The way we're going to get that deception, we talked about it before, is from our hip and shoulder turn. If we get a big hip and shoulder turn on our outside shot, not only are we going to get power out of that, but we're also going to get deception. The stick head is going to hide behind our shoulder for an extra second or two, which is going to give the goalie less time to see the shot. And to illustrate that, if you see, if I had the stick head out in front of me and I was to shoot at the goalie can see it the whole way. As soon as I turn that hip and shoulder, the stick comes from behind me, goalie sees it for less time, I'm more deceptive and a better scorer. When shooting outside time and room shots, you want to really try to shoot overhand as much as possible as opposed to sidearm or underhand. Let me just illustrate why. When shooting overhand, you have a lot greater room for error in hitting the goal. Basically, if I was to shoot at the middle of the goal and I miss my release point right now a little bit low, you can see the ball still goes in the goal. If I'm shooting overhand at the middle of the goal and I miss my release point just a little bit high, again, it still goes in the goal. When shooting sidearm, should I miss my release point and let the ball go a little bit too early, I'm going to miss the goal on the side. If I throw it sidearm and I hold on to the ball a little bit too long, I'm going to miss the goal on that side. So if I shoot the ball overhand, even if I miss my release point, I'm still going to put it in the net. Another way to become a better outside shooter is to learn to be able to shoot underhand and sidearm as opposed to shooting overhand all the time. Basically, what we want to keep in mind with this shot is that we want to keep everything the same as we do for an overhand outside shot. We want to have a good base, we want to have our hands and elbows high and away, and the biggest difference comes in the cradle. Instead of cradling it back and coming through over the top, I just want to learn to cradle more underneath and come through. The big thing we have to learn to do on an underhand outside shot is get used to the accuracy and the release point. If I want to shoot it low, I need to release it real early in the shot, in the follow through. If I want to shoot it high, I just want to hold on to it a little bit longer. I'm sure most of your coaches will discourage you from shooting underhand shots, and that's because it's pretty tough to be accurate. Make sure you spend a lot of time working on it, working those release points before you pull it out in a game. Another way to make yourself a more dangerous shooter from outside and create a little bit more deception is by changing planes. By this I mean, if I drop my stick low, I don't want to shoot low. You can see as I start to drop my stick low, the goalie's naturally going to go down with my stick. It'd be a much harder save if I drop my stick low and shoot it high. Okay? Also, if I keep my stick high and shoot it high, again, it's a very easy save. You can see it's a real easy save for him. However, if I keep my stick high and then shoot it low, it's a lot harder save.
Millen gets roped from up top. He gives the United States a 6-5 score. That's Millen's second goal of the game.
Bayhawks have to shoot. Shot clock.
Oh!
He totally knew what the shot clock read, catches it, turns to his strong left hand, and just rifles that right over the stick of Big Mike Abel. He's one of the biggest goalies in lacrosse.
That's Millen's second goal of the game. He has such a laser shot from up top.
That ball's moving about 95 miles an hour.
Right back. Left hand cranked up, shot and a score. Bayhawks have to shoot. Shot clock.
Oh!
Millen just slides in and just lets it rip.
During the next segment, we're going to talk about shooting in close around the crease area. Most of the time, these shots are going to take place anywhere from about 1 to 4 yards away from the crease area. The thing you have to understand with these shots is because you're so close to the goal, you're not going to get very many of these chances in a game. You really need to cash in on them. Many of the skills we're going to talk about shooting in close are kind of the opposite of shooting from outside. The first thing we have to understand when we shoot in close is that we don't need a lot of power. So we're not going to need our big leg drive, we're not going to need a lot of extension, and we're not going to need a big hip and shoulder turn. Again, a lot of the skills we're going to use are going to be kind of opposite of those. One thing that is similar to an outside shot is my hand position on the stick. While my hands aren't down at the end of my stick, I do want to maintain about a 12 or 13 inch distance in between my hands. And as I said before, I like to choke up, and it just gives me a little bit extra control. When you're shooting around the crease area, there's going to be a lot of defensemen in here throwing checks. The more control you have on your stick to maybe catch a bad pass or just shield your body from a check, the better off you're going to be. The next thing I want to do is make sure that my hands are in close to my body. Again, kind of the opposite of what we talked about for an outside shot where our hands are extended. And again, this is going to give us some extra control. Because we're not going to get a lot of power on this shot from a hip and shoulder turn, we're going to need to get some speed on our shot, and where we're going to get that from is our wrists. We're going to shoot a lot more with our wrists in close. And what we need to do is just learn to snap our wrists over. Just snap our wrists over and learn to get a lot of power. And we'd like to try to do that keeping our hands pretty close to our body. Again, really need to snap our wrists over because we're not going to get power from a hip and shoulder turn. The next thing I need to do when I'm shooting in close is shoot with a decent amount of accuracy. You don't have to over-focus on accuracy, but you're going to need to hit spots a little bit. To shoot accurately, what I need to do is first, after I receive a pass, I want to look at a spot, pick a target, and that's my goal of trying to hit that target. The next thing I need to do is make sure that the head of my stick goes exactly at that target. So if I'm looking to hit a point midway through the goal, I got to make sure the head of my stick goes exactly at that target. If I'm trying to hit a point midway through the goal and the head of my stick finishes over here, there's no chance of me hitting that spot. But again, if I'm shooting at that bottom low corner and my stick head goes directly at it and I release the ball right at that corner, I'm going to be pretty accurate inside. When shooting in close, there's certain spots I like to shoot on the goal which give me a high percentage chance of scoring. Basically, what I like to do is keep my stick in, again, towards my box area, the box area near my ear, and shoot on a downward trajectory straight down at the goal. I like to try to hit a spot about 12 inches off the ground all around the net. I'll give you another example. Straight down at the ground, trying to hit a spot about 12 inches off the ground. When I'm in close, I don't want to shoot bounce shots because there's not a lot of room for the ball to bounce and skip up under the bar. Most likely, they're going to go right into the goalie if I shoot bounce shots. Also, I don't want to try to shoot high very much because if my stick is high, the goalie's right there and the ball is going to go right into his stick. So again, the highest percentage shot is going to be right off his hip to an area about a foot off the ground, straight down on a downward trajectory. Another thing players like to do in close on the goal is make fakes, where they turn, and make a bunch of fakes on the goal. Personally, in field lacrosse, I don't like to make a lot of fakes. I think the goal is big enough that when I turn, I can pick a spot and just bury it. One thing you have to keep in mind when you're making a lot of fakes is that you want to make fakes more with your head and shoulders as opposed to the head of your stick. So if I shoot the head of my stick out, I then have to bring it back and the goalie can reset himself. That's the incorrect way to do it. So if I'm gonna make fakes with my head and shoulders, okay? I also want to keep the head of my stick behind me the whole time so that when I do make the fake, I can shoot off the fake. To give you an example, I make a fake here, the stick is behind me, and I can shoot right off it. Again, the incorrect way would be to bring my stick head up, I then have to pull it back and shoot it, and the goalie's reset himself. So fakes with your head and shoulders, keeping the stick behind you, and you'll be a more accurate shooter from in close. Like we talked about in the outside shot, changing planes is also very important from the inside. If I have my stick high and shoot it high, it's a very easy save for the goalie. Also, if I had dropped my stick low and shoot it low, it's a very easy save for the goalie. If I keep my stick high, again, I'd like to try to shoot low. I'll give myself a better chance to finish. If I do drop my stick low, most likely the goalie's gonna drop because I dropped my stick low. And if I pull it high, I'll have a better chance of scoring. So make sure you change planes from inside as well. When shooting from extreme angles or really tough angles on the goal, don't be afraid to reach your hands out to give yourself a little bit of extra shooting angle. It goes a little bit against what we were saying before shooting in close. We said before we want to have your hands in tight, and that's to protect from defensive players checking you. If you have some room before a defenseman picks you up, it's not a bad idea, again, to just reach your arms out. The basic idea behind this is that from right here, my own eyes can see a certain amount of net, not too much. If I reach out my stick and pretend my stick has an imaginary set of eyes, it has a lot better angle. So you can see I reach my hands out and shoot. As we talked about before when we shoot in close, we need to make sure we shoot with our wrist, snap our wrist over. Again, don't be afraid to just reach your stick out, give yourself a little bit of angle. It'll increase your scoring chances. Being able to quick stick can help you out in certain situations on the field. In order to execute a quick stick, the first thing I need to do is have my hands in a proper position, ready to receive the ball. I need to have my hands back behind me so I can get rid of it really quickly. One thing I have to understand when I quick stick it is that I want to just catch the ball real quick and release it, no cradle. Most of the time when I receive a pass, I'll make one cradle and then move it on. When I quick stick, I just want to feel it, touch it, and get rid of it. I got to understand that I'm not going to bat at the ball for a quick stick. The wrong way to do it would be to bat at the ball. I just want to feel the ball into my stick and quickly move it on. A good way to practice it is just get a teammate, constantly throw back and forth, or just get on a wall and try to keep having the ball come back. Just keep working on getting rid of the ball, having real soft hands, getting rid of it as quickly as you can. So there are two situations where I like to use quick sticks. The first one is where I'm in the crease area and I have a defenseman sliding and he's about to check me and I need to get the shot off very quickly. If I'm in the crease area and I catch a pass and my defenseman's nowhere near me, I like to pick a spot and bury it. But again, if a guy's about to slide and check me, it's a good idea to quick stick it, get a good quick shot off. The second area I like to use quick sticks are on the back side of the goal. If I have a teammate on the top side opposite where I am and he's dodging, most likely the goalie's going to have to honor his play and he's going to be looking for his shot. If I can sneak in on the backside and look for a pass from my teammate and one time it before the goalie can come across, it gives me a better chance to score. However, if I was to just catch it here on the backside, wait for the goalie to get in position, he's going to have the angle and he's going to make the save. So again, just to illustrate it, if my teammate's on the top side, good time to quick stick it, you'll score more goals, won't even give the goalie a chance to make a save. A drill I like to use when I'm practicing my inside shooting and inside crease cuts is just a real simple drill where I set up one of my teammates on the left side of the goal, one of my teammates on the right side of the goal. I put a cone right in the center of the goal and I'm going to continuously cut up to the cone, back to my teammate. The thing I'm going to work on is just to make sure my hands are in close and I'm picking spots and burying the ball. You'll notice most of my shots are going to hit on a downward trajectory and I'm going to try to hit some net inside the goal. Let's give it a try.
Watch David Curry now. He will draw a lot of attention. You'll see the defense rotate up, break the little right to left move there, and the defense rotates upfield. Millen left alone on the doorstep, little dip and dunk.
Charlie Lockwood looking to get the ball rolling again offensively for Team USA. Darren Lowe back and forth, changing the direction. Big finishing shot.
Millen just slashing right through the defense here in this game. You'll get a great angle here. You can see the quickness of Millen. He's so tough to cover.
During our final segment, we're going to talk about shooting on the run. Shooting on the run is probably one of the hardest skills in lacrosse to master. It's also one of the hardest skills in lacrosse to teach. Because shooting on the run is so difficult to master, it's going to require a ton of time practicing on your own. In this segment, we're going to talk a lot about the fundamentals, and then it's going to be up to you to go out and master it. When shooting on the run, we have to revert back to a lot of the skills and techniques we learned when we talked about an outside shot. The one thing we do have to understand that on an outside shot, we get a lot of power and speed on our shot from our base, and because we're on the run in this shot, we're not going to have that power from our base. Where we're going to get that power, we're going to make up some of it in our hip and shoulder turn. We got to make sure that we do all the same things, as we said before, that we do in a time and room shot. We have to have our hands and elbows high and away from us. We need to have our hands about 12 or 13 inches apart. And again, we really need to make sure that we're going to make up some of the power from a hip and shoulder turn. On a time and room shot, we can get away with not having a giant hip and shoulder turn because we're going to get some power from our legs. But when shooting on the run, we really got to work on turning our upper body, turning our hips, and getting through on the shot. One thing that I really like to do when shooting on the run, which really helps me exaggerate my hip and shoulder turn, is that as I'm moving towards the goal, I like to kick my outside leg or upfield leg out, and it really helps me to turn my upper body. Another thing you'll see some players do is they're bearing down on the goal, they'll move towards the goal and kind of jump shoot it. Those are two ways to help you get a big hip and shoulder turn when shooting on the run in a game. Be creative and find out what works best for you. A few more points that should help you when you're shooting on the run. Number one, don't be too concerned with your accuracy. Just make sure you get a big hip and shoulder turn, you get a decent amount of power, and I'd like you to try to shoot as many high bounce shots as you can. Make sure the ball's hitting the goal, making the goalie work. The next thing you have to do when you're shooting on the run is make sure as you're running past your defenseman on a dodge, you don't slow down. I see a lot of players who make a dodge, they're on the run, and then they kind of pull up to shoot, and the defenseman's going to make a check. So when shooting on the run, don't slow down, run right through the shot. Next thing you need to do is have a quick release. So if I'm making a move off a dodge, as soon as you make the move, try to get rid of it. The goalie's going to try to get set, and if you can shoot it before he gets set, you'll have a big advantage. The next thing you need to do is just make sure that you understand that shooting on the run is a very, very difficult skill. You need to practice over and over to get good at it. When we talk about placement on the run, there's only a couple things you want to keep in mind. First, we want to make sure that we get a decent amount of velocity on our shot. We're going to get that through our hip and shoulder turn. The next thing we want to try to do is shoot as many bounce shots as we can. If there's one thing to think about, see if you can try to watch the goalie's feet a little bit, and as he begins to move on an arc because you're moving, see if you can shoot it while he's moving. It'll make the save a lot tougher. And for the more advanced guys, if you can try to shoot back where the goalie came from as he moves, it'll make your scoring chances go up even more. One of the drills I really like to use to practice shooting is called the wheel drill. The reason I like this drill is, number one, I can practice shooting on the run as well as shooting in close. The other reason I like it is because it allows me to shoot near the end of the drill when I'm tired, which is very like a game situation. The way we set this drill up, we just get 5 guys around the perimeter. Each guy has 2 balls ready to throw them. We see there's a cone in the middle of the field. I'll start at the cone, cut to each man, get 2 shots, run around the perimeter. Let's see how it looks.